Is it good afternoon or good morning? Yeah, good afternoon. I know many of them have gone for coffee. It's a large panel, and already got some instruction from RAI to limit the session with and conclude the session within the timelines. We have 45 minutes now. I'm Thirumalanath. You can call me as Thiru. I got this invitation for talent transformation in an hybrid era for this topic. Talent transformation is not the new subject. We all know. Anyway, we have to prepare for this program. So I was doing some research, and I went back to in my career also, where talent transformation worked well. So I remember 23 years ago when I was working in a multinational hotel. It's an American company. Their general manager used to question the HR manager if there is a sales down in a restaurant. I used to think, why general manager is questioning HR manager why the restaurant sales is down. The American philosophy at the time, especially in such hotel, they want to set objective to HR on business results. So talent transformation is stitched to HR function. And then I worked on different companies, and one example, in 2006, I joined an HR consulting company. At that time, it was 13-year-old. The turnover of the company was around 120 crore at the time, but the vision of the managing director, founder of that company, was 1,000 crore in 5 years. And initially, I did not believe that 1,000 crore can happen in 5 years, because already 13-year-old company with 120 crores. Then it was an history. In 4 years, we did 1,070 crores. So in this entire journey, 4 years, the talent transformation was the center point. It was completely planned, strategized, and stitched with the business plans. So it made me realize that talent transformation is very critical for any organizational success. So we have eminent panelists here. I don't want to take much time. So since we have limited time today, what are the critical factors that impact the talent transformation in any organization, especially the talent transformation hybrid era? This is the hot topic in the last 2 years. So we have taken 5+1 key factors that impact the talent transformation. So I have prepared questions. Don't think that I'm copying and reading. So the 5+1 factors, the first question is about the business. I'm touching the large side and then come to the core subject. On the business, as you know, business is uncertain, lot of changes happening in the market. As a company, as a HR function, we have to keep scanning the market. Then only we will be able to make corrections in the company. So this question is to Vijay. What is the change you are seeing in your business or industry that forces your organization to take talent transformation even more seriously than before?
Thanks. I work with this company called Bata, and we've been serving the Homo sapiens for quite some time now in one of the most important act of walking, and very recently running as well, as we ventured into the sneakers. So if you go around, and you will find that there are sneaker studios in our stores which are prominently doing the business. Over the last so many years, and of course so many geographies, and of course touching every bit of the economics and the topography and the demography of the people, what we learned is, and that talent transformation was always there existentially in us, existentially as humans, as we evolved in the species. It's just that in the books of HR, it has formed a word not so old but very recently. We believed that the first step in this talent transformation, and we practiced it quite some time now, is of course the fact that the companies needs to be agile and understanding the business behavior that is existent. We also have seen, and we survived 2 world wars from the inception of the companies, that the pattern of fashion, the pattern of business changes, correct, at the level where the penetration of the knowledge goes to the lowest level of the hierarchy in the humans. Therefore, what we learn from them and what we learn from the entire evolution is a very simple thing, that talent transformation has to be a continuous work. In the very recent times, we all have seen COVID, we've been hearing COVID, and the new learning which came to us is that not only the business, correct, has evolved in a very, very different way, which we have never seen before, and we have seen that the business has touched and business has evolved typically, as almost in all the panel discussion before ahead, everyone was talking about, is that when we cannot buy it, we have to look at digitally. But in our kind of a business, and typically I'm talking about a shoe retail business, this is a business which primarily and totally cannot be shifted to a digital platform. Because still, as a human being, we would believe to wear the shoe, walk 2 steps, and then realize that whether that shoe is comfortable for us or not. So all I think is that as we migrate to the digital era, there has to be a very, very cognitive understanding of the balance of what's digital and what's not digital. And while we talk about the talent transformation initiative, I think that's a bit of my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vijay. If anyone else wants to talk about, please share your views on this changing dynamics in business. Right, okay. The second one is about, as you know, customer experience. Customers are at the core of any organization. And happy customers are our loyal customers. And loyal customers we can get through if they get a good experience, employee experience. So employee experience is critical to give good customer experience. So we have Haneesh, who heads HR in Apollo. Haneesh, can you please give your organizational background with employee size, branches, locations, and then what kind of initiatives you guys have taken on employee experience?
Namaste to all of you. I represent a company by the name Apollo Pharmacies Ltd. I don't know how many of you know about it, but for the wider audience, I just wanted to kind of give a brief about this company. We are the largest pharma retail chain in India and arguably the top 5 in the world. We service almost 6.5 lakh customers a day, and we are almost the reach of 60 crore Indians. Our target is to take it to 100 crore customers by the next 2-3 years. Recently, we completed we started our 5,000 stores in Chennai. Thiru, you were also part of that invitation, people who have come in. So we have, as of now, 40,000 employees servicing in 22 states. So to give the geographical indicator, like I have a store in even the dense forest in Tripura where I support ONGC operations to Andaman Nicobar. That's a reach Apollo Pharmacy has in India. So yeah, your question, please.
Yes. So the undeniable truth is to deliver customer experience is about passionate employees.
Yeah.
Haneesh.
So as I said, almost 6.5 lakh customers walks into my stores every day. The difference between pharmacy retailing and other retailing is this. Because when you go to a restaurant, you come with with happy, you want to kind of enjoy a restaurant, want to have food, or you want to kind of go into any store where you want to buy grocery, you are in a happy state of mind, right? So when a customer walks into my store, probably one of his person is suffering at home, or he is not well, or something of some sort of happened in his house. So that's the reason why he comes to my store. So probably what differentiates me from others is basically I have to bring in a lot of empathy whenever I'm dealing with the customers. So that's the difference between retailing and the retailing where pharmacy is into. So what we teach usually to my employees is basically to have 3 skills of listening, assisting, and advising. Probably when you go to a store and ask for a cold medicine, so he would probably have to kind of identify whether you are having a wet cold or a dry cold. So he has to have that basic understanding about the diagnosis of the customers before he helps him in terms of dispensing his medicines. So these are some of the things which we do in our company in terms of making the employees more empathetic and giving them the right advice and listening to the customers. So that's what primarily goes into entire operations of Apollo Pharmacy.
Yeah. Thank you, Anish. One more question related to that only. So since you have presence in 20 plus states, you need to standardize certain things. And in the last 2 years, especially after the pandemic, can you share some of the initiatives you have taken to standardize and how it impacts the customer experience?
Yeah, so as I said, we have 40,000 customers spread across 40,000 employees spread across 22 states. So one thing which basically is a challenge for the HR is how do I do kind of a skilling of the employees in terms of understanding the basic customer requirements. So that's where technology has played a great part, especially during the COVID time when we could not bring them to classroom training. We have launched many learning app which go by the name of Gurukul, which we have internally developed, which basically takes care of all this training. That's one important challenge which we faced during the COVID. Second was basically, as somebody was saying earlier, about recruiting, because most of my target employees come from tier 2, tier 3 towns, and job fairs which are conducted by government. And during the COVID time, most of the job fairs were suspended. So primarily, we had to reach the prospective employees through a digital medium. So we started a digital hiring platform during that period of time. And because of which we could kind of, because as you know that when everybody was at home, we were working. And most of my stores were open during the peak of COVID to ensure that all my customers get some medicine on time. So, but how it went well backwards when we were doing recruitment was basically to ensure that people are there to service all the customers. So this virtual hiring platform helped us in terms of getting the people from home to our stores. So these are 2 things which we really did during those COVID times.
Excellent, Anish. Thank you. The third factor that impact talent transformation is about leadership. This question is to Adhir.
Yeah, I think one of the important ingredients in terms of developing talent is the kind of buy-in that you would have from the topmost level. I think some of the earlier panel members said that the rat starts at the top. And if you were to really be serious about talent development as an issue, and serious about developing internal talent, I think if there's no buy-in for what we are doing from a leadership perspective, I think whatever you may want to put it as a system, process, or technology, your things may not progress. I think the classical example is that a classic example in an HR parlance, which all of us would know, that we typically talk of the build and buy ratio. If the leadership is not committed to actually building talent and actually helping drive my succession programs internally, at the drop of a hat, the leadership will go out and buy talent and not actually commit to what they've done if they are not actually committed to the whole process. Therefore, setting the ecosystem, setting the culture in the organization to actually let the talent flourish and enrich within the organization is an important ingredient. Without, I think, a talent buy-in, without actually talent setting the ecosystem, without actually talent walking the talk, so to speak, without the leadership walking the talk on the talent agenda, I don't think we as HR professionals would be able to do a great deal. We can set up systems, we can do actually enablement of the processes, but I think where leadership drives is the kind of walk the talk on talent and actually demonstrate by their examples of when the rubber meets the road, so to speak. They actually start looking at internal talent, and therefore that talent agenda gets set by them. In our own case, I can classically give a couple of examples. Is that during the pandemic, when the mayhem was happening across the entire world, even within the organization, one of the 2-3 key programs we run in the organization is the Emerging Leaders Program and the Senior Leadership Development. I think the leadership never kind of shifted their eyeballs from this program. And I think that was a very important message there for the talent which was there, that this is an organization which is actually focusing more and more on the talent programs and actually developing and helping us to do what is right for the business. So that's the true metal of where we start looking at how committed your leadership is to actually these programs. How committed are we to actually driving the agenda? Because if the leadership is not taking on the mantle of driving talent transformation agenda, we can kind of discuss till the cows come home, as they say. But nothing will ever get done if there is no buy-in, there's no backup. And I think the important ingredient is really walking the talk on talent by the leadership. That's where actually an important part which probably need to be demonstrated and exhibited at the topmost level in the organization.
Thank you, Adhir.
Thiru, can I add? Thiru,
Yes.
can I add to what
Yes.
Adhir said? See, there are 3 roles which, according to me, leaders can play in really transforming talent, in addition to what Adhir spoke. A is they need to act as a mentor to the promising young staff, They need to help them navigate through the pitfalls and the traps, these promising talent come across in their initial part of their career. They need to help them understand the unexplained, unsaid rules of conduct in the organization. I think this is extremely important in addition to what we do at the functional level, especially in the light of talent transformation. B, leaders need to help people differentiate between what a role-based organization is and what is a job-based organization is. A job of a manager is to assess people, to get things done from them, but his or her role is also to coach them, to guide them, and to set them for success. Job of a teacher is to teach, but the role of a teacher is to be available and accessible to the students at all point of time. This plays an extremely important role in transforming talent. Okay? That's the second. And 3, Adhir spoke about COVID. When complexity hits the organization, system adapts. The $1 million question is the role leaders play in what to control and what to let go of. Now, whether we really wait for such kind of crisis to happen and we learn out of them, or we proactively democratize. I think that's the role, leaders play and talent transfer.
Yes. Thank you. So the next question, maybe I want to ask one more question on the leadership point. Since audience wants to learn, they are here to learn from all of you. I want to, since Adhir and Rahul have talked about leadership, I want to hear from others also about leadership. 1 or 2 points that should be the takeaway for the audience. Anyone wants to share?
Yeah, maybe I'll take a chance. So one of the things that, in retail, if you see any retail organization, we have thousands of employees, hundreds of stores, hundreds of locations. Now, sometimes, the respective managers may not be in that respective location, right? The biggest challenge of leadership is how do you get people to do what they are supposed to do when you're not around, right? And that doesn't happen, through monitoring and reviews, right? Feedback, all that is fine. So when you are there, people will do what they're expected to do. But, as my colleague here was saying that, if your store is in Andamans, how often can an area manager visit that place, right? How do you ensure that the store manager there is doing what he's supposed to do day in and day out? How do you ensure that the people there are doing what they are supposed to do. I think leadership has a lot to do with inspiring people. Sometimes, we tend to forget the difference between the manager and leader. So the aspect of being able to inspire people, the aspect of taking them where they want to go, right, is also very important. The emotional connect that leaders needs to have, I think that hasn't changed over the ages, whether we are in a hybrid era, Gen X, Gen Z. It's more important what's in it for me, and how do I use my job, my role, today to build what is important to me. I think that's something that's very important for leaders to understand.
I think we were in the first panel on the issue of culture. I think there was a lot of debate, discussion that happened. One of the things that leadership ought to do in talent transformation is, of course, not just speak from the top of the house saying what's the culture, but it's how you enable systems, processes within the organization, which enables employees to talk about culture, as opposed to only leaders. So that's where probably they would have met and helped the rubber meet the road, so to speak. Because if employees start talking about the culture, that means you are actually driving the culture. And it's not just having road shows or having placards, etc. But I think if the larger mass, the population starts talking about culture, and therefore, how do you actually build enabling systems which are impactful at the ground level is a leadership job, which probably is very, very serious and which is very, very committed, that the leadership is committed to this kind of a process.
Sorry. Hello? Sorry. So just a small thing, and probably 2 seconds it will take for that. Everything that we're doing here is business. Everything that we do in a company is a business. There is nothing charity about it. Talent transformation also is a need of a business. What we realize is that if there is no succession planning for a role, correct, the suffer is business, and hence talent transformation direct linkage is to do with the business. So that's not something very philosophical in nature, but that's also the organization need to understand, the leadership need to understand that talent transformation is equal to money making.
Yeah, please.
I think coming back to the culture aspect, as employees, we've all grown also in organizations, right? And we hear a lot of things from our immediate line managers to say this is what the culture is, or we've heard it in our induction programs to say this is what our culture is. And in a retail store or anywhere else, when you have a visit that's coming through and you see those leaders demonstrate certain things in action, I think that kind of, like Adhir said, that's where the rubber actually meets the road to say, we might be propagating appreciation and culture and all of those things, but when a leader comes in and only looks at a commercial balance scorecard or something about the P&L of the store and walks out, that last line employee has probably said, okay, recognition might not necessarily matter. I was the employee of the month and he did not even know that. So how do you set up systems, processes that become like the DNA of a company that really says that anybody who visits the store has a certain aspect. At the back end, we're probably saying you have a checklist. But for the employee, his experience of a leader coming and speaking to him or her and talking about those cultural aspects is where talent starts to believe in that common purpose. And I think that's where that impact could really come in.
Excellent, Smitha. Thank you all for your inputs on leadership. And I think the fourth question also you guys have covered. I thought of asking about culture along with leadership, combined the culture subject also. Anyway, culture, from my experience, I have been seeing, especially recently, there are definitely culture and leadership are highly connected. But some organizations, especially the new companies, they also have a culture, but it's a healthy culture or not, it's very important. And especially the new joinees after graduation, freshers, they may not know what is the good culture or bad culture in the beginning. After some time, they will realize where they are into. So morning L&T, a keynote speaker, Dr. Vijay Kumar, was also talking about values of L&T and Raymond and all these big organizations who are here in this business for a long time. They have culture, they have values to run the organization. It's very important related to, then they talked about leadership. It's very important we develop good culture in the organization and we imbibe good values in the system. So the next question on culture, and this question is to Dr. Sanjeev. Sanjeev would like to know what role culture plays in talent development.
Thank Thiru for touching a question which is very close to my heart. See, culture, I personally feel, is that basically it attracts the talent. We see, you can uproot a plant and take it somewhere else, but you cannot take the soil around it. Giving an instance, a competitor can take your employee, he can poach your employees, but the culture, what was the soil, is left behind with the organizations. So we always believe that the culture is the perception of the employee in terms of what they feel the organization is all about. In Pepe, what we do is, in my previous discussion when we the CEOs were discussing, I just found that 3 cardinal principles which Pepe follows is one is, first C is the capability building, second C is the collaboration, and third is the celebrations. So when we talk about this, when even the small instances of success are being celebrated, and I know you all know that Pepe, when you see in the social media, Pepe is known about the employee engagement, Pepe is known about, partying very hard with the employees, because we have created that kind of culture. Now, if you define a culture in a pattern, I'll say culture is like, iceberg. Down the line of the water, you can see the assumptions, you can see the values, which are not visible, but they are palpable. The palpable means you can sense, you can feel. But the organization which brings their water level above that particular level where the values, the process can be seen, then only the culture will give you the impact. To give you another instance of this, in today millennials, which I feel, because I in the age of 50s, the young generation I have in my organization is less than 30 to 33 years. When I mingle around with them, they don't trust anything which they don't understand. So how you communicate your culture? See, every organization has their own culture, their own values and their beliefs. But that values and beliefs needs to be understood, needs to be practiced by the employees. The leadership at the top had to lead with example. Unless and until that culture cascades down, I don't think any talent development will take place, or the talent who are coming in the organizations and they are looking towards their seniors, that what organization is participating. In that aspect, we are very much promoting the employees that the values are not only been awarded, they are also rewarded. We give the employees who have we have introduced one kind of an award where any employee who demonstrates the best culture amongst the employees, the values what we have, we really reward them. That is what is required in the today's era. So we are, focusing on the key talents. We are focusing on the developing on the talent. We are also, making the people accountable, ensuring that the culture is being practiced, demonstrated within the organization.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to add on this. So specifically, I'll take my organization example. So my Apollo group culture is completely defined by Pratap Reddy, who is our chairman, who defines the culture for the entire Apollo group companies. So in Apollo Pharmacy, what we do deliberately is we don't take people from outside at the top senior level, primarily giving the message to everyone that there is a career ladder up there. And all my regional heads, starting from CEO to down, have all grown from within. So that gives assurance to all my employees that we are working in a safe company and our future stays here. Second thing which we deliberately done is we don't have a bell curve in our appraisal system. So we don't believe in that philosophy of bell curve. So what has happened is, because we don't have a bell curve, there is a teamwork which happens. Because everybody, if there is a problem, we all sit together. We don't kind of see that there is a kind of a rating which will happen at the end of the year, where I will be considered for a better rating and all. So you don't have that. So everybody works as a team and see that whatever challenges comes in, we address it. And the third thing which I wanted to take it to the audience is that when COVID happened, several of my people succumbed to COVID because we were the front COVID warriors. We never went by Mediclaim limit as such, like every employee has got a Mediclaim limit of 3 lakh or 4 lakhs. So there are instances where we have spent lakhs of rupees to see that my employees comes back normalcy. So all these things gives assurance and environment to all the employees that Apollo Pharmacy or Apollo Group company is a company to work for. Although we might not be the best paymasters, but there are other things which they can trade off. So that has really helped us to grow Apollo where it is right now.
Thank you very much, Haneesh and Dr. Sanjeev. Now, the fifth key factor, which is close to my heart, is about technology. And especially after the pandemic, of course, pandemic is not over. So the technology adoption is accelerated. So we would like to pass this question to Alex. How should we leverage technology to bring collaboration, development, and growth?
Yeah, so before I answer that question, I think all of us HR folks know that HR is a high-touch, function, and there is this common misconception that when we go high-tech, we tend to become low-touch. So I believe that tech and touch are not mutually exclusive, and they can complement each other. So how did we use technology at Max or in Easybuy? Is that we work with certain principles. One is we said, how do you build competency? We have around 10,000 people, 200 towns and cities, 400, 600 stores if I combine Easybuy. So how do we build capability with speed and with the scale that is required through technology? The second is, how do you motivate people to put in the discretionary effort that is required? The third is, how do you inspire them to change their learning which they get into daily habits? And the fourth is, if they do it well, how do you reward them? So these are certain principles that, on which we built a platform, which is an app. Every employee in Max today has it. And it's a very simple app. We said the first thing is, to push learning, like we were speaking on the Tesseract, the micro learning, which happens, through the app. There are, engagement. If somebody does a big bill, you get credited certain points into your, app, which you can redeem, right? And the third is in terms of generally at the store level, incentives, most of us, I think almost all of us pay incentives based on sales performance, right? So what is the flip side to it? That in a store, if you have 50 people, the store does well, but all 50 people have not worked as hard, as anyone else. So some would be exceptionally hardworking guys and girls, but there would be people who have not actually contributed to that sales, right? So if a store is achieved and you pay them incentives, you're actually also discouraging the people who have put in those discretionary effort. So we said, how do you resolve this challenge? That the reason that we do it based on sales is because it's very quantifiable. And anything which is habit, behavior, values is very difficult to quantify. So, and the second thing is that when you do a performance appraisal at the end of the year, you're actually doing a postmortem. You don't have a, you're not giving the chance to the employee to correct, and give a chance to earn better or be better. So we said we need to do it more often, to make it simple. So this app actually, on a monthly basis, the manager spends 5 minutes. We call it praise, right? And we very consciously termed it praise because we wanted the manager to focus on the positive aspects first. So the manager spends 5 minutes with every individual, whether it's a cashier, store employee, inventory guy, and says, okay, this month, this is what you did well. Okay, and this is where, you could do better, and it is fed into the app. And At the corporate, at a click of few buttons, we know across our network of stores what is the talent that we have, right? Consistently over a period of time, who is being rated A+, who is B, and who is not doing so well. And even if your store doesn't perform, if you are rated an A talent, you get the incentive, right? So how does it help us? It says that it doesn't matter because results sometimes are not in my hand, but my effort is completely in my control, right? So we have used technology to actually touch, the emotions of the employees to say that, okay, how do we quantify habits, punctuality? How do we quantify, whether the person is groomed well? Is he able to, do some big bills? All this we have put in, and our incentive program today is based on two things. One is, of course, sales, because retail cannot exist without that, and the other is the discretionary effort. And this input goes into everything, whether it's your promotion, whether it's your increment, whether it's your incentives, everything is pulled from this system. And at a click of a button, which region has a issue with quality of talent, which store, which particular department, and we publish this report on a monthly basis to all the key people. Other than that, I think technology can be used to free up time, as Rahul was mentioning, that how do we spend time building people. If they are doing transactional work, if HR folks are doing transactional work of, doing reviews, doing all that, doing inductions, all those transactional works can be, put on the system, right? Whether it's chatbot, whether it's documentation, getting paperless, all this involves, the HR folks, the cluster HRs who manage, they have to go personally hand over the documents, they have to go personally do the training. But we said this is all transactional work. We have put it all onto the app. But we said that whatever is related, coaching them, motivating them, having those discussions, understanding what are the challenges, how can they do better, all this, has freed up their time. So this is something that we have done. One example, of course, there are many that I can share, but because of lack of time. But I strongly feel that technology is a strong complementer to the high touch that HR folks are supposed to do.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you for giving in detail. Yeah. So the fifth key factor we completed. The last one, this is 5+1, sixth factor. That's a very important factor, is about employee. And there is a management quote also, aspiring employees will help organizations to grow. So whatever talent transformation activities we do or talent development initiatives we take, unless employee involves and shows interest to learn and contributes, organizations cannot grow. So this question is to Smitha about what should employees do to further their self-development, and how will this impact business growth? Can you please share some of your experiences?
Sure. So we've heard a lot of things about how culture is critical, what leadership can do, what kind of an ecosystem, how can technology be an enabler. But it's ultimately for the employee. All of these things are stuff that, like they say, you can take the horse to the water. But bottom line is to say, as an employee, what is it that each one of us can do to stand out, perform at our max potential, and therefore impact business? So we've been hearing over a period of time, we've heard of competencies. Post-COVID, we started to hear things around skills. And that shift has really come about because we don't know what competencies might be needed, and we are expected to really pick on newer things very quickly. And that's where this concept of meta skills or power skills came into play, to say that the way these skills are defined are, if you learn these skills, your learnability of any functional skill becomes simpler. So I might not really look at learning Spanish as a language, for example, but I look at just looking at a growth mindset. Am I able to pick on a skill that says, if I learn creativity, for example, if I start to build on that aspect, then I can look at problem solving in the organization. I can look at different perspectives of how to approach a problem. Can I look at innovation and challenging status quo? So those kind of things will start to come on easily. And then you have another aspect of self-awareness. I think it's becoming more and more critical today. Do I know myself? Do I know the impact I have on people? And when we focus on these kind of aspects of skills, various other functional aspects become easy to pick up. And then the ecosystem that is there. We've all talked about talent development when it comes to experience, exposure, and education, or technology, or various things. It becomes easy for me to adapt to any of those and therefore start performing at my potential. So as an employee, I think self-development will start at first at a mindset shift, then going on to looking at what kind of skills, connecting the dots in the organization. I might be, and I think I love the way Rahul explained it, to say there is a job and there is a role. How do I really look at that in a way that I understand, yes, my job says I have to go from A to B, but it's possible that I might have to go to a minus A or a plus B. And that's where each of us can stand out in terms of the contribution. Yeah, thank you.
See, I believe empowerment is a personal choice. No organizational values and culture has ever influenced that. We have seen enough examples wherein people have taken initiatives and brought so much of value to the job and the role and the function. I have so many examples. We never had much work done on the D&I front, but I had a colleague who has done exemplary work in that space. And, we finally won the Helen Keller Award in becoming the benchmark in the PWD space hiring. So I think she said, you can take horse to the water, but I have a better version of that. I will not take horse to the water. I will tell the horse that there is a water. You go and have it. Okay? But many times the issue that we are grappling with, if the horse wants to drink his own pee, then what do? That's the bigger issue that, we are grappling with when it comes to self-development.
Excellent, Rahul. Anyone else who wants to share about this employee factor?
Nothing, the horse part excited me. So I think the better way to do is that you harness the horse so much so that it is thirsty and it then goes by itself to drink water. I mean, why to tell a horse to drink water or not? Just make him work so much so that it is thirsty and it goes for the water. I mean, that trust is the urge to learn or the urge to grow up.
Yeah, 3 minutes more. Thank you, panelists. I think if we sit one-on-one and spend half an hour, I think it's reading a book, complete book. So 7 members, 7 hours, almost 4 hours we have to dedicate for this session to learn about talent transformation from this eminent panelists. So I'll leave this floor to questions. We have 2.5 minutes now. If there are any questions, please ask question and mention whom do you ask.
Thank you, panelists. And I like the horse example. I would want to ask a question on the horse again. So, how do we then motivate? One said, harness, make him thirsty. The other said, we can only show him the water. What else can we do? Because today there are many horses and they are just looking around. They are absolutely clueless what to do next. So any one of you all could answer this.
So I think the larger question really is basically there are many horses, there are many harnesses you'll have, etc., etc. I think therefore the job of leadership comes very, very imminent in this, from that perspective. Really, how do you actually set up my organization for success from a purpose culture standpoint? And it's not just semantics I'm talking, but really, truly, do you care for the culture of the organization? Do you actually have a purpose defined for an organization? Why should me be really aware to come every Monday and burn myself for this organization? So what is in it for them is what is important to understand, and therefore the setting of purpose, culture, and the ecosystem, which will help you to get harness in that sense. I think he also mentioned a beautiful story that he may not be the biggest paymaster, but typically is the culture compelling, and therefore is that place compelling enough for me to actually look at whatever I'm going to do for the next couple of years, etc., to be stationed here as an organization. So how do you make a place compelling for me to contribute and grow as an individual? So what are the, I mean, there are the kind of frills and benefits you have, but typically at an engagement level, what at an emotional level, how is my connect of my employee through my purpose, culture, and the ethos that the organization is trying to, very big words, but not semantics alone, but seldom organizations do just lip service for some of these aspects and not really go into the depths of understanding and really articulating and really helping implement some of the right principles to run organizations.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think to motivate somebody, it's very important, to first understand what drives them, right? Every individual is different. So for example, there is, a manager who likes challenge, okay? And at the same time, the subordinate is, likes balance in work, going back on time. And this person is very demotivated and goes to the manager and says, somehow I'm not having my heart at work. Because this manager is, likes challenge, he would, say, okay, I'll give you a very challenging assignment. And here she is struggling, to balance, work and life and a lot of priorities. So there are multiple drivers. For some, it may be career advancement. For some, it may be work-life balance. For some, it may be the empowerment that I get, to do what I like to do. So I think if you have to motivate somebody, I think it's the manager's responsibility to understand what drives that individual. And also, secondly, to respect people as they are, right? And don't want to, change them, focus on, we have a lot of this focus on, weakness and, we have to build your weakness, but I don't think it works at all. Of course, if it's a fatal flaw, yes, there is a, problem, but what is good about that person, right? And focus on the strengths. And the only field where this strategy works well, has been actually exploited well, or used well is sports, right? So you don't get a batsman to bowl or a bowler to bat and say, okay, bowling is your weakness, so let me train you on bowling. So the batsman knows batting, so he has a coach on batting, right? So I think it's more about understanding them, what drives them, respect them for what they are, and I think motivation will follow.
Can I add just 30 seconds,
Time is up, Rahul.
It's a
However,
fallacy.
take 10 minutes.
It's a fallacy that you can't motivate anyone. You can only inspire people so that they motivate themselves. Okay, by doing 3 things, and that's what we also do in our organization, only focusing on openness, trust, and experimentation. Like the way we say that our ads say that we build trust, we also make steel. So when you allow people to experiment, I think the transformation happens.
I think one last point. I think look at the armed forces. There's every inspiration, there's every purpose that, they are not the biggest paymasters, but I think look at what drives people on the forces. There are a thing or two to learn from these people, these organizations. I think we are very much indebted to them, but at the same time, what are the principles they have? And it's not necessarily that they're there for out to make money, but I think what is the purpose behind what they're doing? So I think that's very, very critical and important fundamental.
Thank you, Adhir, Rahul, and Alex. The time is up. Of course, I have few case studies which connects to these open points. Thank you very much, panelists. So it's over. Thank you very much.